Here we are at the Mad Mechanics Lab, and what we're going to show you today is a little bit about putting S10 parts on your Chevy Monza. And I just want to give a big shout out to Monza Madness on Facebook and Marty Eden, one of the original like me. If you don't have it, make it. So what we're going to show you today is some modifications that I'm doing to use some S10 stuff. So here is what I got on the lower control arm, is that I welded a sleeve in here to use the S10 ball joints on the bottom. And what I did was take Monza or Vega, Astra, regular H body, inner front wheel bearing race like this. This is actually S10 one. But what I did is I cut a hole that'll fit the outside diameter of this bearing race. It's just a bearing race from Monza. And then what I did was I inset it into the hole so that it's flush with the top here, and then welded it in. Most of the welding's actually on the bottom. This is just superficial. Just want to make it look a bit smooth kind of thing. And you say, well, it's got a taper. How can that work? Easily, because the size matches pretty good on the bottom side. So what you do is you weld it in, and then you take your air die grinder. It doesn't matter if it's a flat end or round like this, as long as this part of it is nice and flat and it's a good quality carbide bit that will eat through the metal easily. And then what I did is I just ream it out until it's to the specs I want, which is 2.090 in fractions. In decimals. And I get it out to the right size so that it'll make a good press fitting. And then I use this here, the S10 lower ball joint, and I press it in up to the shoulder, obviously. And then I can use the bigger S10 ball joint on the lower control arm, because the factory ones, unless you're restoring your car, they're very weak. They're very small. They're like a Geometro parts, which isn't good. So some of the things you would have to do is, if you're gonna swap to S10 parts and you take apart your Monza, you can use the old bearing race as long as it's in decent condition. Just make it very clean, no grease, no oil on it before you weld it in. And I could easily ream out my hole with the die grinder to match the specs I needed for that. And so other things that I'm going to make, because apparently you can't buy them anymore, is the camber bolts. As you can see, they're grade 8. So what I'm going to do is, I got grade 8 bolts. I wouldn't use any less than that, grade 8. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this flat part onto the new bolt for as long a distance as I need. And then I'm going to put this, slide it on the end, and we got that piece. This piece, you can, if you have the flat steel the same thickness, you can make another one of these. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut the one off the head, because it has a nice degree mark and stuff. I'm just going to cut off the head, and then where the bolt goes, obviously, I'm going to drill the 5/8 hole through it, and I'm going to put it all the way onto here to the head. But what I'm going to do, I mark the thickness of that washer, that cam washer, and I'm going to cut this flat to match where I'm cutting this flat, like the original here, but I'm going to cut the flat here, the thickness of the washer. And then when I put it on, it's going to look like this. You're going to know if you can see that good. Let's see. You're going to see the space. You're going to see the space. Maybe this will work better. You're going to see the space there. And that's where I'm going to put some weld in there on the shaft to weld the washer I'm making to the end near the head here. I'm going to just weld it on there. So that'll work good. And then this shaft, the rest of the shaft's going to stay smooth and round, of course, because that's where the bushing's going to go. And this is going to be flat so that I can put the original cam washer on. Furls look okay, so I'm probably going to reuse them. I have used stainless steel washers, the right thickness, in the past, and they work perfectly good. Let's see, some other things I'm going to need for my swapping is, well, this is for the back axles. It's a back axle seal. So I'm going to take the S10 axles out and I'm just going to swap them into my rear end. So you want to take that apart and have a look that your bearings are all in good condition. If they're all in good condition, all you're going to need is 2 of these and the rear axle cover seal. I'm just going to make one, but yeah. And for the front, I have the seal for the discs, and I have new S10 bearings because I'm using the S10 spindles, the rotors, and the calipers. So I'm going to put new bearings in that, and this is a seal that goes in the inside, keep the garbage out. And that's what I'm going to do with that. I'm waiting for the energy suspension polyurethane bushing kit is coming. I used them on the other car and they're great. I'm going to put those in and I'm going to finish this all up, make it look better. And for the front, what I'm doing is I'm using the S10 upper ball joints in here too, in the Monza upper control arm. And what I had to do on this is, obviously it's a lot bigger joint than the original. Also, it's a lot bigger. So what I did on this is I make a plate using the cover for the S10 joint. I just put it on something, whatever. I'm using 1/8 inch plate steel, and you just mark it out. You mark out your basic shape and your bolt holes, and the center, I just flip it over, kind of eyeball it, make my center. And so what I'm going to do with that is, and then you just mark where you're going to start your drill in the middle for your hole saw. So what I did with that, with my crappy old welder instead of the good one, is I made this plate like this. And you don't make the hole in it, you just make the outline and the 4 mounting bolt holes first. And then what I did was I welded it to the bottom side of the upper control arm. And then you have a nice flat surface from the underside to start your hole saw in the middle there. Start your hole saw, make sure you got the right size hole saw that's going to fit this casing in. It's going to fit this casing in, and you got it marked there. And you can weld it to the bottom if you want right away, or yeah, that's probably the best way. And then you can put it inside here, and what it does is it matches almost exactly right to the edge here. That's where you want it to go. So it's as close to the edge with getting the whole ball joint, the whole case, right to the edge of here. That's what you want to see. This obviously goes over and into there, and the edge of that is going to be just about exactly in line with this upper curve here, this upper lip. So that's the way I do it. It works good. It's simple. It's a lot heavier duty than the original. The ball joints are very huge compared to what was on the car, which when I look at it I think, oh my gosh, so under engineered, so flimsy. But so this is what I do just to make it heavier duty, is I make a plate. I use 1/8" plate steel and cut this out, weld it to your bottom of your A-arm, and then you drill out the center. You fit your piece in, this piece in, just this part, and you mark where you gotta put your bolt holes. Make sure it's all good. You drill through your new bolt holes, and here I still got to do a little bit of welding. Weld in the little bits here of the old bolt holes here, but not a big deal. I got the other ones drilled already. Fits good, and the 1/8" plate steel is perfectly fine. That's what I use, and it's strong enough. It'll make it stronger than it was, because the mounting bolts are plenty long enough to take up that difference in the extra width you're gonna have. It works perfectly fine. And this is your buddy though, air die grinder, with a nice long bit like this that's flat on the side so it cuts evenly. And I just make it fit good. You really need that on this part for lower control arm. And what you do is you just go around like this, nice straight, keep going till you get to your right specs, and it worked perfectly. Now it's at the right size, 2.090, to fit the press in ball joint. So I'll use my ball joint tool and I'll press those in after I get it all cleaned up and painted, and that I'll put those in, and when the bushing kit comes I'll put them in, and I'll try and make a video of that. It's hard for me to make a video when I'm working because I've just got my phone right now. I want to set up a camera and a tripod eventually, so you can see me actually doing the stuff. But I'll show you more. If anybody has any questions, you can just comment down below, and I'll try and get back to you. Any information I can give you and stuff, because this is stuff I've done many times, so I know what works, what doesn't work. But the main goal is to use bigger S10 parts, bigger brakes, and go to the 5 lug instead of the crappy old 4 lug. And then you can put cool ass mags on your Monza, and everything's more heavy duty than it came with, which is great to me. I don't mind modifying an old car if it improves things like the braking, steering, you know, performance too, of course, whatever. So this is my mods for this part, and I was just going to show you quickly what I have here is I'm just using a wire feed welder. This one I got from Princess Auto, and I'm just using it on the first one on minimum and the second one on number 2, and what that equates to is about 50 amps. But I'm running 230 volt, and I'm only using it on 50 amps to weld in these sleeves for the ball joints. And I had a 110 volt MIG welder, and on its highest setting it was supposed to be 110 amp welder. On its maximum setting it isn't weld as good as this does on 50 amps. So obviously if you get a bit bigger welder and you go with the 30 volts, you're going to find you can weld stuff that you couldn't before with apparently around the same ampage. Obviously, there's a big difference between the 110 and the 230. So on a setting which it would be 75 amp, or the top one maximum, which is 105 amp, I can weld heavy stuff like trailer hitches, like stuff like this. I can weld on that 105 amp setting with the 230 volt wire feed welder. So yeah, pretty much this is the max I can go on any type of sheet metals. But what you want to do when you're welding the sleeve in, which I told you is just a Monza sleeve, this is a little bit bigger. This is actually S10. I was just using it for example to show you what I used. And cut out your hole, put that in there. And what you want to do is do most of your welding from the underside, because obviously when this is sitting down flush against the top, there's going to be this sticking below, as you can kind of see here, sticking below. So most of the welding to hold it in is actually from the bottom. But what you want to do is you want to work back and forth from near the top here down to the bottom, down to the metal on your A-arm, and back and forth like this, and like, you know, a fair distance, maybe ½ inch at a time, not too much. But you want to keep it on there, moving it back and forth like this, back and forth, until you get this all red. Now if you let off and this is glowing red inside here, the whole thing is glowing red where you were welding, the whole inside is red, then you know you got it hot enough. Because this is a high carbon steel, and they need that heat to transfer properly and to weld it properly. If it's not glowing when you stop, you didn't get it hot enough. You want to crank your settings up on your welder and make sure, because this inside should be glowing red where you were welding. If you're welding ½ an inch here, the inside should be at least ½ an inch or more, just glowing red when you turn your welder off, when you stop welding. If you got that glow, you know you got enough heat. It's going to be bonded really well, and you're not going to have any problem of the race breaking out. It'll be enough. It'll for sure be 100% in there. And the original, it was just similar to this. It was a smaller pressed in ball joint, and it was just the sheet metal. It was just bent over a little bit. It's just the sheet metal. There was no sleeve here from the factory. So this is going to be a lot heavier duty than the factory, and so is the ball joint. So you guys are going to be really happy if you do this mod, because you know stuff's not going to break on you. And this is a vehicle I want to be driving and go long distances with, so I don't want any trouble. But here's some more of the work we got to do. I got to get some tie rod ends, and I'm going to get some urethane bushings for the control arm. I don't think I'm going to go with just their stock. What's the point? If I already put polyurethane on the control arms, I might as well do that too. And I think we've got an inch sway bar here. Yeah, so I'm going to get the urethane bushings for that, so that it'll match and it'll work good. So I'm going to take you over to the 77 Pontiac Astra, which I've done a lot of work on, and it's getting close. I need paint and do the interior is most of what I need to do. The rear end is rebuilt on it. All the suspension is rebuilt. It has a original 4-cylinder with low mileage that runs great, but I have all the rebuild stuff to rebuild this engine. All the hard to find stuff, chrome rings, all the really hard to find gaskets and bearings and stuff, I have them all. So even though this runs like a top, the parts are old. So I don't want it to start leaking oil, so I'm going to rebuild that too. And this one has, I don't know if I can get in here where you could possibly see. It has all new control arm bushings. It has all new control arm bushings. All the suspension is new, energy suspension stuff. All the ball joints. I went with the original type of ball joints, but I used the Moog brand, which is very good quality. Pontiac, see? It's just a Vega. They badge it as Pontiac. Except they have a bit different, cooler stuff. The rear tail lights are pretty cool. They kind of look like a Firebird type of a thing. But that one is, all underneath is all done. The suspension, all the brakes, front and back, the rear end's rebuilt. So I got to rebuild the engine, but it's not critical right now. It'll drive perfectly fine. So I'm going to get sanded on this and stuff, and get some paint on it, and we will be driving it. Yeah, I actually drove it here. But yeah, everything's done on this baby. It has lots of new parts, so it's going to be like a new car. But this one is going to be heavy dutier because I'm using S10 stuff, and I'm putting a 305 Vortec engine in this one, so it's going to have a bit more weight and definitely more power. And it's going to be a great project, and I'm going to try and update as much as I can on what I'm doing, and try to make a better video where I can actually show you me working on stuff, you know, actually doing it, not just talking about it, explaining it, which I'm sure should be helpful to some of you who haven't done this kind of stuff to your Monza. But I guess I'm gonna go for now. But if you guys have any comments or questions, go ahead and ask, and I'll see if I can help you and tell you about mods and stuff I've done with these H bodies in the past, and help you out. And yeah, so I think that's about it for now. I gotta actually get doing some of this stuff, so I hopefully get my camera set up. I think my mom's got a camera. Get my camera set up and on a tripod so I can actually get some video of me rebuilding some of this stuff. That'll be good. I'll try and keep you updated on stuff and show you me changing the axles, stuff like that, the backing plates, and putting the S10 stuff on the back. Okay, so this is the Mad Mechanic Slab. I'll see you next time.